AI data centers can use as much electricity as 100,000 homes. And now President Trump has governors and electricity companies joining a voluntary pledge to protect U.S. consumers from rising utility bills. WSMV's Sydney Witt has the latest.
The Republican Governors Association says that Governor Lee is on the list of 23 other Republican governors who are in support of the president's pledge. The pledge was first introduced back in March. President Trump claims that the pledge will lower family electricity bills using surplus power and self-generation to feed the grid. But it's not clear whether that will offset the increase in demand. It also has about 200 stakeholders. The pledge reads that the American people should not be footing the bill for the benefit of private companies. Instead, the data center boom should be leveraged to address affordability and benefit all American households and businesses. Now, the pledge is non-binding, so whether consumer bills will go down depends on what companies will do next. In downtown, Sydney Witt for WSMV4.